In the winter of 1934, Clad and Viola Nelson were struggling, farming, ranching, and raising their 10 children in the Teton Valley of Idaho, very near the Idaho-Wyoming border. This Christmas story begins the day after Thanksgiving when 13-year-old Guy said he was sick. Well, of course he was sick, the family thought. Too much goose, dressing, and other Thanksgiving fixings. But when he continued to complain, the doctor was called. The ranch was about 6 miles from the small town of Driggs, and so Dr. Redner had to come there by horse and sleigh. When he examined Guy, he said, "Scarlet fever," a dreaded thought as it was considered a dangerous ailment. The disease was feared to be very contagious and necessitated the family being put under quarantine. There would be no coming or going allowed from the ranch until the doctor gave them an all clear. Dr. Redner gave permission for 2 of the older kids, Ella and Phyllis, to be fumigated out immediately, leaving the home and living elsewhere until it was safe to return home. The 2 older children were bathed in a number 3 tub in very hot water, generously dosed with liquid Lysol. Ella remembers climbing out of the tub, hurriedly dressing and still steaming, getting into the sleigh, and Dad hastily driving to town. This left Guy, Helen, age 11, Rex, age 9, Arlo, age 6, and Bonnie, age 4, and their parents quarantined. Guy was banished from human contact and put in the southwest room of the ranch house. A sheet dampened in Lysol water was hung in the doorway, and his isolation began. The children remaining at the ranch didn't find the quarantine so bad. In fact, they found it fun missing school. But times were tough. This quarantine just added to their many challenges. The estimated time for quarantine was approximately 21 days, providing no one else contracted the ailment. Thankfully, no one did. But the good doctor never made it out to the ranch until the morning of December 24th, Christmas Eve day. It seems when Dr. Redner got to the sick patient, Guy was just returning from the foothills where they had cut the Christmas tree. When the doctor looked at him, he said, "I cannot lift the quarantine, as Guy's hands are still scaling." No one had been able or would be allowed to go to town to Christmas shop. Ella was sent a message to come to the ranch and get some money to do the shopping. It was a heartbreaker for the older children who couldn't come home for Christmas. Ella pondered on how she was to make the trek to the ranch for the money. At this time of her life, she was very fascinated by a very handsome, debonair young man, Robert E. Griggs, Jr. Robert wanted to take her to the ranch, but couldn't, as he was already assigned to be Santa's helper in the town square at Driggs. And you know, that could not be put off, as Santa has so much to do on Christmas Eve. So he graciously hoisted Ella aboard his riding horse, and Ella was off on her important errand. She traveled on a road that went up through what was called Calmer's property. The road went straight east, past the cemetery. Of course, there was no plowed roads in those years. The day was clear but very windy. When she arrived home, the family was happy to see her, but no hugs or kisses, as they were still dangerous. Mom had put some money in a box and heated it in the oven to kill the germs. It was passed out the door to Ella, and she was on her way again. It was but a small amount of money, but Ella did her best. The next problem was the trip back to the ranch. By the time Robert's assignment was over and the shopping done, a full-scale Teton Valley blizzard was in progress. Robert had the cutest little green bumper sleigh with the seat and dashboard on it, and he was in good standing with Frank Knight and his team. So Robert said he would take the things up to the ranch with that outfit. Of course, Ella wouldn't hear of him going without her, so he put the beautiful sounding Swedish bells on the horse's team, stored the treasures under the seat, wrapped themselves in a quilt, and faced the storm. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Clad, Viola, Helen, and Guy were up sitting around the warm and cozy stove. But Clad would get up and pace the floor. He was certainly feeling the disappointment of the prospect of an empty Christmas morning. "They're not coming. They're not coming," Clad would murmur. But the sweet mother, Viola, would try to reassure her frustrated husband, saying, "Dad, they will come. I know Ella won't let us down." Clad would go outside to look and listen into the darkness, then return to pace in the kitchen. Finally, he said, "I'm hitching up the horses and going to town." His patient wife would simply say, "Dad, they'll make it." Still, he went outside to hitch the team. When Ella and Robert hit the state line road, the horses broke into a trot, and did those bells ever ring out and herald to the family that they were coming and Christmas was on its way. When Clad heard those bells, his feelings of frustration seemed to magically change to relief, excitement, and joy. He returned into the house announcing, "Well, I heard the bells," acting as though he had never had a doubt. Ella felt a lump in her throat when she saw the lights of her home, and she knew what a relief it was for her mom and dad to see them. They still couldn't go in the nice, warm-looking house, but they talked to the family through the frosted window as the firelight shined on their faces. They exchanged love and Christmas greetings while Robert unloaded the Christmas gifts. With their mission accomplished, Ella and Robert hopped into the little green sleigh and headed back to town. The storm had stopped. The night was quiet and beautiful. The horses broke into a brisk trot as the bells of Christmas rang out. Ella gazed back at the two-story ranch house with a dim light showing in the windows and the lazy curl of smoke from the chimney. Ella remembers still the beautiful scene and the feeling of a mantle of love and true Christmas spirit as she rode through the snow that night. She felt a great appreciation and love for Robert, who would become her husband and father of her 6 children. Helen says, "I had a wonderful Christmas. I got a brown purse with a chain handle and a blue ever-sharp pencil. Mother had made me a coat with a big fur collar." End of quote. But the most lasting gifts were those of love, memory, and heritage that remains strong to this day.